If you look at how people react to Avatar 3, something strange shows up. Some people say beautiful visuals, but it doesn't touch me. And some people leave the cinema with a heavy feeling, and they cannot really explain what exactly happened. This video is not a retelling of events and not about world details. I'm interested in something else. Why the third film leaves a feeling like the movie quietly took from us something important. To feel this, let's start from far away. But I promise you it matters. There is one scene almost everyone remembers. In Titanic, the ship is already sinking. People understand that not everyone will survive. And in that moment, an old couple stays in their cabin. A mother puts her children to sleep. The musicians keep playing. None of them fights for a seat in the lifeboat. No one tries to win. They simply stay human, even when the world is falling apart. This scene hits so hard not because it's tragic. It hits because it shows one simple thing. Being human does not always help you survive. And here we need to pause. Because a system, a corporation, doesn't act like this in a such situation. A corporation doesn't act like this. When survival is on the line, a system chooses efficiency. If this is Pandora, this is RDA over and over again, third time in a row. A person sometimes chooses something else. And now we can return to Avatar 3. The first two films gave the viewer a feeling of support. The world is alive. And if you stand on the side of life, you have protection. Even when it hurts, there is still a feeling. All this means something. Many people watched Avatar like that. Not only as a sci-fi, but as a promise. If you choose what is alive, if you don't become cruel, you are already on the right side. The third film carefully removes that feeling. Not suddenly, without loud statements like this is the era of new morale, almost without you noticing. At some point, the film asks a question that wasn't there before. What if the right side starts acting as hard as the enemy? Not because it went crazy, but because otherwise it cannot survive. Jake Sully killing Spider, I didn't expect that. That was overwhelming. Neytiri wanted to kill Spider. And then we have this scene of Jake and Spider. That was unexpected. And that's out of the blue, although it's not. From the very beginning of the third film, we see that Jake is transforming. He's trying to protect himself by transforming into RDA and its military principles. Before, everything was simpler. There were those who destroy and those who protect. There was technology and there was the living world. That picture is comforting. It's nice. You know who to root for. You know where the truth is. But in the third film, that line starts to blur. Not because the heroes became worse, but because they went through something that changes you forever, the loss of a child. An experience after which the world no longer feels safe, a moment when words about values start to sound different, and here a third appears, one people rarely say out loud. Sometimes hardness feels like the only way out. Sometimes not feeling looks like a way to survive. Sometimes keeping your humanity starts to feel like a risk. The film doesn't rush to condemn this. It simply shows how this logic appears. Through familiar phrases, we have no choice. We protect our own. If we don't get tougher, we'll be destroyed. This is not the language of villains, it is the language of people who have lived in danger for too long. And right here, a new clan enters the story. On paper, it's just another side of the conflict, but in human terms, it's harsher. It's a group that lived through a catastrophe and made a conclusion. No one saved us. No one saved us. So we don't trust anyone anymore. And if survival needs hardness, we choose hardness. We choose cruelty. This is no longer a conflict between humans and the Na'vi, like the classic conflict. It's a clash between two ways of living after pain. One says, we stay able to feel, even if we were hurt. The other answers, being sensitive made us vulnerable. And here the film comes to a very dangerous place, because this second logic can feel understandable, not right, not beautiful, but we can understand that. Almost everyone knows that moment, the moment when a third appears inside. Sometimes kindness doesn't save you. Sometimes it costs too much. And it takes a lot of humanity to save that kindness in yourself and not turn into evil. That's absolutely difficult. Avatar 3, in my opinion, stops being a fairy tale. It becomes a conversation about what happens when to people when comfort ends. From here, we will have to talk about not about the beauty of the world, but about what loss does to morality. Why some people after this disaster hold on to life and others choose fire, and why this difference feels frighteningly familiar. Maybe because it's not about Navi, but it's about us and how we deal with the loss. This is where we start breaking the film down. Let's move on. There is one strange effect almost no one talks about out loud. After Avatar 3, it doesn't feel lighter. The film ends, the credits roll, the music plays, but inside there is no familiar relief we often expect from big cinema. No feeling of, okay, we can breathe now. Rather the opposite. Something stays with us. Many people describe this in a very similar way, even without using any psychological or psychoanalytical words. Some say it feels empty, emptiness. Some notice they're just sitting there, not reaching for other for their home or phone straight away. Some say it doesn't let go. This is not excitement and not disappointment. It's a state where the film is over, but the process inside is not. We try to think what's going on. We try to process what we have seen and what we have taken from the film. Usually, popular cinema works differently. It takes tension, carefully bring it to a peak, and then gives release. You leave the theater, you switch off, you go on with your day. The world feels back in place. Here, this doesn't happen. It's not because the film is too heavy or too violent. We've seen films that are heavier and more brutal. But after them, there was still a sense that the story was closed. Here, no. A strange feeling appears, as if no one protected you, as if the film didn't do the work for you that films usually do. And at this point, a very simple question comes up, without theory, without analysis. What do we actually expect from stories like that? Most of the time, not an answer. We expect permission, permission to feel we're on the right side, permission to be angry, if anger makes sense, permission to be afraid, if fear is understandable, permission to believe that in the end it was all not for nothing. The first Avatar films gave this permission, even when it hurt, even when someone died, even when homes and worlds were destroyed. There was always a point of support, a feeling that something bigger exists, something that holds that connection. Life, the living world, are stronger in the end, and the viewer felt left with a feeling, yes, the world is cruel. RDA is cruel, humanity is cruel, humanity destroyed the earth, but I know what to hold on. Pandora. In the third film, this feeling is quietly removed, not suddenly, not demonstratively, without a big gesture. At some point, you just realize the film no longer guarantees that the right choice will make you feel calm. You can care, you can stand on the right side of life, you can hate violence, you can hate violence, but this no longer promises inner peace. And this is where that feeling people describe as it doesn't let go appears, this feeling, it doesn't let go, because a question shows up inside that is hard to avoid. What if real life works the same way? What if it's not Pandora? What if it is our inner world? Inner psychic world. What if there is no final sense where everything falls into place? What if right decisions don't bring back a sense of safety? What if pain doesn't necessarily make a person better? The film doesn't say this directly. It simply doesn't close the story, and here many people feel anxiety. Not cinematic anxiety, not plot-driven anxiety, very personal anxiety, because it feels familiar. This is how people live after loss, after big disappointments, after events that don't allow you to return to who you were before. You keep living. Formally, life goes on, but inside, something has changed, and it doesn't go back. Avatar 3 is the first film in this franchise to touch this experience. The experience of a world that no longer has to be supportive. And this matters. The film doesn't offer an immediate way out. It doesn't say, do this and it will get easier. It doesn't give you a comforting meaning. It leaves the viewer in this in-between space, between old hope and new uncertainty. That's why it doesn't feel light after watching. Not because the film is bad, but because it stops being comfort. And now one thing becomes important to understand. This feeling didn't come out of nowhere. Before Avatar had a very clear moral structure you could lean on. It made pain bearable. It made the story feel complete. In the next part, we need to calmly look at what this moral rested on before, and why it no longer works the same way now. No scene analysis, no complex psychoanalytic words, just an experience many people feel even when they cannot yet put it into words. I'm gonna do that for you. To understand why it feels heavier now, we need to take a step back, not into the plot, uh, into the feeling. The first Avatar films worked not because of beautiful creatures, flying scenes, or technology, although they're impressive, not even mainly because of colonial themes. They worked because they gave a very clear inner support. You could almost physically feel where home was. A place that accepts you, a place, Pandora, where you can breathe. Pandora in the first films was not just a planet, it was a space that holds you. Yes, it is dangerous. Yes, there was a war. Yes, people died. But the logic of the world remained clear. Life is connected. The living hear the living. And if you can feel, you are not alone. This feeling made even cruel scenes bearable, because behind them there was a promise: the world as a whole is not hostile. In the first film, Jake has almost no inner support. His body is broken, his life is cut short. He exists inside a system of orders, missions, and reports. And when he enters Pandora, the contrast is almost physical. There are no orders, there is listening. There is no use, there is connection. You matter not because you are useful, but because you are alive. This is a very powerful human fantasy. That's why the film worked for millions of people. It didn't offer an idea, it offered the feeling: if I choose the living, I will be supported. The second film keeps this logic, but it makes it more complex. Now it's not only about you, but about your children. The world becomes dangerous not in theory, but in a very concrete ways. There is constant tension, constant fear of loss. Jake changes. He becomes tougher, sometimes uncomfortably tough. But this toughness still feels justified because it is about protection, because the goal is clear: to keep the family safe. And the viewer accepts this. Many people recognize themselves here when you live not from calm but from anxiety, when you cannot afford softness because the world feels unsafe. But even in the second film, one important thing remains. The loss is terrible, but the frame of the world still holds. There is a sense that if you endure, if you stand your ground, if you stay on the right side, there will still be a chance for life. And this is where the break happens. The death of a son is not just another loss, it is a loss after which the old logic stops working. Because there are experiences that cannot be placed back into the old picture of the world. They break it. That's why the third film feels different. Before, the moral of Avatar rested on a very simple but powerful structure. The world is alive, connection matters, choosing life does not go unanswered. Now the movie starts asking a much more disturbing question. What if the answer doesn't come? What if you chose life and still lost? What if connection didn't save you? What if the world didn't hold? Then the old moral stops being comfort. It becomes too fragile. This is a crucial moment. Because Avatar 3 doesn't destroy the previous films, it does what life often does to our old beliefs. It shows the point where old answers no longer help. And from this place, new and much harsher logics of survival begin to grow. In the next part, we'll look at those who have lived by this new logic for a long time, the Ash people and Varang, not as new villains, but as those for whom the old faith simply did not work. That is exactly why they are so frightening. When the Ash people appear, a very understandable wish shows up to decide right away who they are, to name them, to explain them, to separate them from us. That is always easier. Here they are, radical, hard, dangerous. So everything feels clear again. But Avatar 3 does something that breaks this comfort. It doesn't give us a quick explanation. It doesn't say, here are the new villains. It doesn't underline this with music. It doesn't turn them into cartoon pictures or cartoon evils. It shows their world. And if you look closely, it becomes clear. The Ash people do not look like those who simply want to destroy, like sadistic people. They look like those who have lived without illusions for a long time. Their story doesn't start with war, it starts with catastrophe. Here they are. A volcano, fire, ash, a force with no address. You cannot explain to it who is right. You cannot negotiate with it. And most importantly, in that moment, no one came. Ava did not save them. Connection did not hold. The world did not respond. This is a very heavy experience, narcissistic trauma. And as a result, there is narcissistic anger. In my opinion, this is a very familiar case. Because in real life, and I work as a psychotherapist, the most destructive things often don't happen because someone is evil. They happen because something breaks and help doesn't come. And here a person always reaches a crossroads. You have two options. You can keep believing that the world is overall reliable, that comfort will come later, that connection still matters, or you can draw a different conclusion. If no one saved us, then there is nothing left to rely on. And the Ash people choose this path. This is important. They are not running from pain. They are not denying loss. They build a life where pain is no longer an argument. In their world, no one promises protection. No one says, we are with you. No one offers comfort. But there is control, there is hardness, there is order, and if you look carefully, it becomes clear. This is not a world of hatred. It is a world where sensitivity is seen as dangerous. Varang is the key figure here. She doesn't look like someone who enjoys causing pain. Look at this beauty. I do not think that she looks like someone who enjoys causing pain, who is sadistic. There is no pleasure in destruction, no hysteria. She is calm, focused. And that is what makes her most frightening. Because she doesn't act from emotion, she acts from a conclusion. Her logic is simple. If vulnerability led to death, then there will be no vulnerability. If hope made us weak, then there will be no hope. If the world did not protect us, then we will stop waiting for protection. This is not evil. This is a strategy. And that is why the Ash people look so whole. They have no inner conflict between feeling and survival. They already decided it in favor of survival. And here comes the most uncomfortable moment for the viewer, for us. Because this logic doesn't look fantastic. In my opinion, it looks familiar. This is how societies live after catastrophe. This is the reason for terrorism. This is how people live after losses that cannot be fully mourned. This is how those live who once understood if you wait for response, you may die. And Cameron, in his interviews, sometimes refers to world conflicts, Israel, Palestine, and others. Although the film doesn't rush to judge her, it doesn't say, look how wrong this is, look how bad she is. It shows the price. The price for this is the refusal of feeling, of softness, of empathy, of trust, and in return, there is stability. And here, the viewer starts feeling an inner conflict, because before, Avatar taught, to feel is to be strong. Now another version of strength appears. This version of strength is cold, controlled, not dependent on the world's response. And the most frightening part, in my opinion, is that the movie doesn't give a simple answer about which strength is right. It just shows how one grows out of the other. The Ash people are not the opposite of the Na'vi. They are a possible outcome. What happens when belief in a supportive world breaks and a new belief has not yet formed? That is why the Ash people are truly dangerous. They have philosophy. They have their view of life. Not because they are strong. They are dangerous not because they're strong, but because they are logical. They have this system of belief that have internal validity. There are no contradictions there. And here we reach the point that finally breaks the old scheme of us versus them. Because this logic doesn't stay outside. It spreads, it stops being something external, it starts reflecting inside those we used to call ours, Ash people and Na'vi. They are from Pandora. Because pain does not stay local, it moves. In the next part of the video, we need to talk about how this logic starts living inside the Sully family. About how loss of a son does not only shape enemies, but slowly changes the closest ones. And that is where it becomes clear. The conflict is no longer external. It is inside. After the Ash people appear, there is a strong temptation to look at the conflict from a safe distance. Here they are, the radicals. Here we are, the normal ones. The evil is somewhere outside, but Avatar 3 doesn't give us this comfort. Because the most disturbing things in the film doesn't happen where new clans and new threats appear. They happen where everything is familiar, inside the Sully family. In the second film, this family was a center of warmth. Not perfect, not calm, but alive. Jake, tough, anxious, sometimes too commanding. Neytiri, emotional, bright, instinctive. The children, different, arguing, looking for their place. It was a family that stayed together because there was no other way. And then something happens that breaks any system. They lose a son. This is not just a dramatic turn. It is the kind of loss after which you cannot go back to how it was.
No. No, no, no. Nadeem!
Grief here is not the background. It becomes the new environment. And each person in this family lives through it on their own way. Jake moves into even more control. He cannot afford to fall apart. Because if he collapses, everything collapses. He becomes quieter, harsher. He speaks less about feelings, more about survival. This is not coldness. It is a desperate attempt to keep reality together. Very familiar to many patients, by the way, and parents, by the way. Neytiri experiences loss in a different way. Her grief is not silent. It is fierce. Her pain does not look for meaning. It looks for a way out. And here a dangerous moment appears. When pain is too strong, the psyche needs an object to direct it toward. Someone who can carry the role of a guilty one. And that object becomes Spider.
Don't hurt her.
Please. Or I got.
What, you think I care about some kid? He's not mine. We're not even the same species.
Please don't hurt her. Just please let her go.
Don't.
Please.
Don't kill him.
Listen to me.
This moment is very questionable. So, Spider carries the role of the guilty one already in movie 2, The Way of Water, and in movie 3. He becomes that object. He didn't suddenly change, Spider. He didn't become worse, but he is the most vulnerable link. Not her husband, not Loak, not her own vulnerability, not mankind, but Spider, as the representative of people's kind. He is not fully ours. He is human. He is connected to the enemy, and this makes him the perfect container for hatred. This is a frightening but very human dynamics. When pain cannot be held, it looks for an exit outside, often inside the closest circle. Loak stays in between, with guilt that cannot be measured, with the feeling that he is alive instead of his brother, and with a question that is never said out loud but eats from the inside. Why not me? He could be killed. It was his choice to go to save Spider, although obviously he was not hurt there at the ship, and humans considered him theirs, so there was no danger for him. But Loak, we have to save him. Where is your strategic thinking, dude? No. So someone would say that, well, to some degree it is his fault. His fault. Sully family. In movie 3, the family stops being only a source of support. It becomes a place of tension. And this is a key shift in the whole story. Because before Avatar said, if you choose life, if you choose family, you are safe. Now the film carefully shows something else. Even the right choices do not protect from destruction from the inside. And here it becomes visible how close the Sully family comes to the same logic as the Ash people. When pain becomes too strong, a third appears. Maybe feeling really is dangerous. Maybe hardness is the only way not to fall apart. And here the viewer starts to feel truly uncomfortable, because the difference between us and them begins to blur. Not on the outside, but on the inside. The film does not say the Sully family will become the Ash people, no. But it shows some transformation into this direction. And also it shows something else. Anyone can end up on this slope. And the question is no longer who is right, it is who can hold the pain without turning it into a weapon, without the need to act out, to get your revenge. And then the film makes a move that was impossible before. A move by Jake, after which it becomes clear. This is no longer about a plot turn. This is a break in the moral core of Avatar itself. There is a moment in Avatar 3 that is easy to miss. It doesn't look like a climax. There is no loud music, no speech, no victory. Jake simply makes one choice. He takes up human weapons. Not in the heat of battle, not in panic, not because there was no other way to survive right now. He does it calmly, consciously. And that is exactly why this moment is more frightening than anything else. Until this point, the moral of Avatar rested on an unspoken agreement with the viewer. Yes, the world is cruel. Yes, you have to defend yourself. But there is a line that our side does not cross. This line was not so much about violence, it was about a way of being in the world. The Na'vi could fight, they could kill, but they did not become like those they are defending themselves from. And now, for the very first time, this line stops being solid. This is important. This is not a fall of the hero. This is a scene where Jake becomes evil or breaks down. He decided to slaughter, to kill Spider. In this movie, in the second movie, we see that Neytiri decided to do the
Let
same.
her go. Don't hurt her.
Mom, don't kill him. Son for son.
Son for son.
Please, don't hurt her. Ah!
I cut.
I cut, she says. And then Jake says pretty much the same. Someone might say that he, at least for a second, became evil, became a person who thought about technical and tactical advantages. If we kill Spider, humans won't be able to study him and figure out how to breathe on Pandora, and without it we could have at least 2-3 more years. Tactical advantage. And because of these 2-3 years, he was thinking and taking actions towards killing his son. And son is not about biology, it's about social relationships. And he almost did that. Just imagine this. A father kills his son. What is it? Is it like the second Game of Thrones? Or what? This is a moment where he grows up too fast and at a too high a cost. Because after losing his son, he can no longer afford the luxury of the old moral. Before, it was possible to believe that connection, nature, and the right choice would protect you in the end. Now this belief is destroyed, and at this point a new logic appears, very simple, very dangerous. If the world does not guarantee protection, then protection becomes more important than who you become in the process. You see the you see how close is it. You see this the similarity. This gesture is not about weapons. It is about permission to use what once was unacceptable at all. He didn't kill a spider, but he was thinking about that, and that's going down the slope, right? Permission. He gains the permission to say to himself, I can no longer choose beautifully. I have to choose effectively. And in this moment, Avatar does something that it has never done before. It stops being a story about the right side. It becomes a story about the price of survival. The most disturbing part is not that Jake is wrong. It is that his choice is easy to understand. Many viewers, I would say, don't turn away here. They not. Because they know this feeling. When you no longer ask, is this right? You ask, will this work? And here the film finally stops being comfort. It does not judge. It does not justify. It simply shows what the world looks like when pain changes the very structure of morality. After this gesture, there is no way back, because once you allow yourself to speak the language of the enemy, you can no longer pretend you are speaking a different language. From here on, the story is no longer about whether the Na'vi will defeat humans. It is about who they will become if, not when, but if they survive. Personally, I do not think they're gonna survive. Personally, I believe that in 10 years in Avatar 5, everyone is gonna die, like with the in this movie, Pocahontas, and Na'vi people are gonna be processed and killed by humanity with all its technology. Avatar movie 1 starts with the saying that the strong side is gonna survive, and people are gonna survive. But in 10 years, when we're going to see Avatar 5, and it's going to be from 2009, 27 years of us, quarter of century, more than a quarter of century, watching this series. Oh, wow. So, who they will become if they survive? Maybe they are going to become like this. Maybe their children and grandchildren are going to become like this. If they are gonna have children, if they are gonna have grandchildren. We, however, need to return to those who made this choice earlier. Again, the Ash people, because the movie is called Fire and Ash. So I guess it's, again, extremely important for us to understand why their refusal of feeling is not madness, but a system. Why this is happening. After this, one thing becomes clear. Jake is not the first to arrive at this logic. Before, we only saw it from the outside, from people. Now it appears inside our side. And this is where the Ash people and Varan fully enter the story. It is easy to see them as just new antagonists. Hard, cool, aggressive, the kind of enemies that feel familiar. But if you look carefully, something unsettling appears. The Ash people are not those who enjoy destruction, Like Jake, he's not enjoying destruction at this moment, right? They are those who once made a conclusion, and that conclusion is very simple. The world does not save. Their home was destroyed, not directly by people, but by war, by nature, by fire. A volcano, a catastrophe with no face, no intent, no one to blame. And the most frightening part is not even the loss itself. It is that no one came. The world they trusted did not protect them. The connection then they relied on did not hold. The living world did not respond. After this, two paths are possible. The first, the world is cruel, but I will still remain a feeling being, a being who can have and allows herself feeling to feel. The second, feeling is dangerous. Connection makes you vulnerable, so it must be abandoned. The Ash people choose the second, and this is important. This is not hysteria, not revenge, not madness. It is a system of belief. They do not scream, they do not rush, they do not look broken, they look composed. The Ash people do not believe in comfort, they do not wait for help, they do not expect a response from the world. They are it feels like they are offended or angry at the world. And this is exactly why they are so dangerous. Their hardness is not a reaction, it is a way of life. Varang is not a symbol of cruelty, no. She is a symbol of conclusion, of philosophy, the way of view. She does not try to restore the past. She does not seek justice. She does not want to be understood. She lives in a world where control is the highest value, because control does not betray, and here comes the most uncomfortable moment of the whole film. If you remove the exotic visuals, the fantasy setting, the distant planet, the logic of the Ash people becomes frighteningly familiar. This is the logic of people who have lived through too much. Let's say mind hunters, pretty much the same logic. Dexter and his victims, many other people. This is the logic of people who were hurt once too deeply and who decided it is better to be hard than to be helpless again. It reminds me of Blown with the Wind, for instance. Scarlett O'Hara, maybe, when she was eating this potato in the garden and being extremely poor and hungry, she was screaming at the sky, I will never be poor again. I will do everything. It's pretty much this idea. They made conclusion and they lost their humanity. So the Ash people decided it is better to be hard than to be helpless again. Maybe Jake is going to do the same conclusion in the next movie. And now the key thing becomes visible. The Ash people are not the opposite of the Na'vi. They are a possible future. This is what any side can become when pain matters more than connection. And that is why Jake's gesture and behavior is so disturbing. He is already prone to this kind of conclusions. Remember him in the first movie, he was completely broken. New body doesn't mean new soul. The same psyche, the same problems, the same very early developmental problems. He, Jake Sully, takes the first step in the same direction. Not because he wants to, not because he no longer believes there is another way. And now the question is no longer who will win. It becomes how much feeling will have to be lost in order to survive. Let's look at the world where this logic is taken to its extreme. A world where feeling is not a mistake, but an unnecessary function. The world of the corporation, RDA. After the Ash people, one thing become clear. Hardness can be a choice, but the corporation shows something even more disturbing. Here, hardness is not a choice. It is built in. The corporation RDA in Avatar is not a villain with a character. It has no face, no emotions, no inner conflict, and that is exactly why it cannot be negotiated with. It does not hate, it does not seek revenge, it does not feel rage. Please look at this manager, right? It simply works. He simply works. It makes decisions, the corporation makes decisions, optimizes processes, reduces risks, increases efficiency. In this world, there is no place for feelings and empathy. Not because feelings are bad, but because they interfere. Feelings slow things down. Connection creates uncertainty. Pain cannot be calculated. The corporation lives in a world where reality exists only as numbers. If something cannot be measured, it almost does not exist. The destruction of a forest is not a tragedy, it is a side effect. The death of living beings is not a loss, it is a cost. This is important to understand. The corporation is not cruel, it is indifferent, and that is far more frightening. This indifference, this corporate indifference, it's indeed far more frightening because cruelty can be argued with. You can shout at it, you can appeal to conscience, but indifference does not hear. It does not respond. It does not change because someone is in pain. And here we reach a key point of the whole movie. The corporation is not just an external enemy of Pandora. It is a possible future of any world where decisions are made without presence, without a body, without contact, without the risk of being affected. This is a world where no one keeps a hand on the pulse of the living, because a pulse disturbs stability, and in this sense the corporation is more dangerous than the Ash people. The Ash people once felt and refused. The corporation never felt and does not see this as a problem. And here a disturbing echo appears. When Jake takes up human weapons, he does not become the corporation, but he starts speaking its language, the language of efficiency, of results, of survival at any cost. That is why this gesture is so dramatic, so dangerous, not because it helps the enemy win, but because it brings closer a logic where the living is no longer an argument. Even your own son, Spider, well, not biologically speaking, but psychologically speaking, Spider is Jake's son. And then it becomes clear why Avatar can no longer be comfort. Because a world where the corporation wins is a world where no one is evil. There is simply no one left to feel. In the next part, we need to take a step back and ask the most uncomfortable question of this whole story. If the world works like this, why do we need the fantasy of Pandora at all? After everything we've talked about, a strange feeling appears, as if Avatar is no longer just a movie about a distant planet, and not even only a movie about the future. It starts to feel like an attempt to hold on something, not victory, not hope in the usual sense, but the very possibility of remaining living human beings in a world that is becoming less and less suited for this. It is important to say this directly. Avatar is not a description of reality. It does not show how things will be. It does not explain what is right. It is a fantasy. A fantasy of a world where connection still matters, where response is possible, where loss is not erased by the speed of decision making. And fantasies do not appear when everything is fine. They appear when something in reality becomes too scarce. Avatar appeared in a world where contact became rare, where decisions are made at a distance, where the living is more and more often seen as an obstacle. Can you imagine that? And each time Cameron tells the same story, a story about how feeling is dangerous. But not feeling means slowly disappearing. If Nightira killed Spider, would he lost part of herself? Yes, of course. The first films were comfort. They told the viewer, if you choose the living, you are on the right side. The third film refuses this. It no longer promises that the choice will protect you. It shows that any choice has a cost, and there is still a risk. The risk that you are gonna lose and that there are gonna be consequences. Connection does not guarantee safety anymore. Sensitivity does not protect from pain. Morality does not free you from heavy decisions. But the alternative is even more frightening. The alternative is a world without a body, without pain, vulnerability, without living presence, without everything that makes us human, without everything that makes us enjoy this world. A world where everything works and almost no one lives. Narcissistic, consumer-oriented, consumption-oriented society. Everything works, you can buy everything, but no one happy. You need more and more and more. And then I guess it becomes clear why Avatar is needed at all. Not to give hope, but to remind us of the price of giving humanity up. This is not a movie about the victory of good, and not a guide on how to build the world. It is a movie about a choice that has to be made again and again. To stay in contact, to stay human, or to close off. To feel or to optimize. To risk pain or to remove it together with the living. And here the film makes it final, most honest move. It does not give an answer. It does not say what to do. It does not promise that it will work. It simply leaves the viewer with a question. What matters more to you? Safety without feeling or life without guarantees? And maybe that is why this story hits so deeply, because humanity is no longer given by default. It becomes a choice every day, every time, without promises. But we have to stay human. And I guess this is the final idea, if you want, the political, philosophical, ethical will of James Cameron. If you liked this video, I would really encourage you to subscribe to my channel, press like, and write anything in the comment. I read all comments and they're extremely important for me to share my ideas on new popular movies and shows. Thank you very much.